Welcome to Just Energy Radio with your host, naturopath and medical intuitive, Dr. Rita Louise. We have learned from Einstein's theory that matter and energy are one. Physicists believe that all systems in nature have their own particular way of vibrating. From the swinging of a pendulum to the waves of the ocean to the light that brightens the sky each day, each of these oscillates at its own unique rate. The same holds true for every thought, feeling, event, or word we speak. Each has its own frequency or rate of vibration. What many of us don't realize is when we take everything in our universe down to its simplest form, it is all just energy. Join Dr. Rita Louise on a journey through time and space where past, present, and future collide. Today, what you believe may be called into question. What we want to know is, who made up the rules? Be brave and step outside the box. We are about to turn our world upside down and venture into the unknown. Hold on. We are departing our own beliefs and entering alternative realms. Enjoy the possibilities.
Hello and welcome to Just Energy Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and it is getting to be a new year. And as we've done since the inception of this show, which is pretty much 5 years now, we've always had some excellent astrologers come on to give us a preview for the year ahead. And this year, with it being 2012, with all its ominous associations that we hear about, it seems even more appropriate. And don't forget, Just Energy Radio is brought to you by soulhealer.com, where you can get information about all the services I offer, including medical intuition evaluations, clairvoyant readings, or energy healing. There's also a full line of herb supplements, articles, recorded stuff, you name it, it's on that site. That's soulhealer.com, and also by the Institute of Applied Energetics, appliedenergeticsinstitute.com. And if you're interested in signing up for our newsletter, you can do that at www.justenergyradio.com. That's also the site you can go to access all of our archives. And as of this show, we have 5 years of archives on that website. So please do feel free to go check it out. Listen at your leisure. So this week we were supposed to have two astrologers on, Michele Avanti and Deborah Clement, except I just got an email from Deborah's daughter saying that they think she might have a kidney stone and they took her to the hospital. Ow! And so, Deborah, our heart is with you. We so wish you were here on the show with us, but ow. And just for you guys to know, her website is anchoredinastrology.com. She's an excellent astrologer. Her and Michele together, we've never had them together before, and I was just prepared for this like 1-2 knockout punch. But we do have Michele, one of our favorite astrologers on the show. She's been with us multiple times, and she's going to share with us what she sees coming up for 2012. But let me tell you a little bit about Michele and get her on the air. Michele Avanti is a published, certified planetary systems analyst, consulting metaphysician, and ordained minister. Since 1972, she has taught and consulted in many areas of metaphysics. Michele has lectured and given more than 15,000 live consultations on radio, television, and at seminars and workshops across America. Her columns have appeared in newspapers and magazines since 1985. So from astrologyandmore.com, Michele Avanti. Hey, Michele, how are you?
I'm great. I'm looking forward to this new year that we're entering, this one that we've been waiting so long to see.
Well, I think this year, more than any, maybe like the turn of the century and all the Y2K hype that was out there, this one's right up there along with it, with people wondering and curious and a bit fearful about, it's 2012, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? And so I'm hoping we can kind of start the show with some talk about 2012, and one of the things that I do not believe is that on December 21st, 2012, either we're going to all, transform into some kind of spiritual higher vibration being and leave the planet, or we're going to leave the planet by some more conventional weapons of mass destruction means. And from your point of view, let's talk about that date and then what you see, is there credence to the whole concept of 2012?
Well, I believe there's certainly credence to the concept of 2012. The question is, which concept are you seeing and how do you interpret it? When you go to much of the prophecies, it talks about the end times. The ending of time is really what the Mayans spoke of. And that's a whole lot different than blowing up the world. When you think of blowing up the world, you may say the word end times, and that's certainly what they promulgate in a lot of biblical circles. However, astrologically, 2012 we look at it, it's an incredible combination of planetary influences. We have more of I want to call it more of a hands-holding around the galaxy than I would say that it's anything destructive at all. I see it as a time where we are going to make a change in the way that we actually see time or consider time. What we're moving into is an elastic universe. Every 26,000 years, we come back to this galactic center. And as we do, what happens, and this is more physics, or of course what I do is metaphysics, but physics is finally coming to start to meet metaphysics. What's happening is all the DNA of the entire solar system, as well as the DNA of all plant life and human life and animal life, all of it is speeding up. And as it speeds up, one's awareness is actually expanding. And as it does, our ability to manifest things also speeds up. So our understanding of time changes. And you can take that at a very basic level. The more basic level is to say, okay, what happens when you're a little child? Time seems to be, it takes forever just to get from the corner to school. When you get older, time seems to come into a little box and it gets smaller and shorter and shorter. And people who are past 50 say, wow, last year just kind of like flew. It's a whole different concept because your DNA actually, and this is a fact, your DNA does speed up. Well, where we are in time now, the whole solar system's DNA is speeded up. It's not just a time frame for individuals, but rather it is for all of us. Everyone on all the planets that are here in this particular solar system, and probably across the galaxies, but my experience has to do with this solar system and our entrance into the galactic center and through the galactic center. So when we say the time, will end, we're moving into an elastic universe where you have the understanding, or you're going to expand into the understanding of the ability to manipulate time. It's always been there when you knew how to do it, but most people don't know how to do it. And anyone who might be in the audience saying, oh, well, time is what time is. You have 60 seconds in a minute, and that's all there is. Well, I ask you to ask yourself a question. Have you had days where you got so much more done in an hour, and other days where you thought, dear God, I haven't been able to get anything done in an hour? And yet, when you think about it, you've worked just as fast. Time is elastic, and people are coming to have a better understanding of that as we come into this winter solstice of 2012. So that's the way I see it. I don't see the world ending, no. I see consciousness expanding, yes. Do I see it happening where everybody wakes up and it's all different? I would love to see that. I wish I saw that. But I don't. I see things continuing to progress.
Well, let me ask a question. I mean, I think you bring up an interesting point, and I just want to kind of put it from a more of a user perspective. So you're talking about the speeding up of time. Would that account for why it seems like yesterday it was October And, like, I don't even remember the summer because it just kind of went, whoosh. There was June and October.
Well,
and I don't know what happened to the other months.
Because the DNA is moving very, very rapidly right now. And I'd also ask everyone on this call, everyone on this radio show, everyone who's listening, ask yourselves, have you asked for something recently and turned around and found it right there? Because manifestation is moving at a much more rapid rate. A few days ago, what was it? Someone said something to me that says, oh, well, I really need this. And I swear, I went to the computer, turned it on, and there was someone giving it to me. It was really amazing. Manifestation is moving at an amazing rate now, and it's going to continue. It's not slowing down. Uranus has gone into Aries. Yes, Uranus does go into Aries about every 87 years or so. So it was there the last time we made some major, major changes back in the earlier part of the last century. We are now, though, we're not just with Uranus and Aries. We've got Uranus and Aries, and it conjoined a fixed star who had not been in that position for 26,000 years. That combination, we don't even know how far back in time, that particular combination of Uranus being conjunct Skiat at the what we call in astrology the Aries point. The very beginning of creation is what we call the Aries point. It is a point of tremendous breakthrough, a point of revolution, a point of sudden understanding, sudden vision, sudden movement or change. And when you add to that Skiat, that fixed star, sudden brilliance, a knowledge that is beyond the capacity of what we would call normal.
I can use that. Could you explain what impact is the attributes of Uranus and what impact Uranus being in Aries has for people that are not astrologers?
Yes, absolutely. Uranus in Aries. Aries is a sign of war. It's a sign of energy. It's a sign of new beginnings. It's a sign of new experiences as a result of our use of energy. Okay? Breakthrough. Uranus is the planet of revolution, the planet of sudden change, the planet that literally will shake up whatever is going on, and what you saw before is no longer what you see now. It's like taking the puzzle and turning it inside out, and everybody goes and looks and says, holy moly, I didn't even know that was there. Like one of those abstracts that they use in psychology where sometimes you look at it and it looks like two faces looking at each other, and the other time you look at it, you see a butterfly. Completely different image. That's what Uranus does. And put it in Aries, you have revolution. And the revolution began the last spring equinox, which was the Aries ingress of 2011. We had that beginning then. And we saw the tsunami in Japan. We saw the Fukushima breakdown. We saw a lot of things that took place in this past year that many of us, when we think back to them, it seems like lifetimes ago. But it was only a few months back.
When Aries, and I don't know if you have this information in your head or on a piece of paper, when Aries was in, or Uranus was in Aries 86 or 87 years ago, what was going on? Do you happen to know off the top of your head?
When Uranus was in Aries the last time, we had the Great Depression. We were in the beginning of a time which we were going to enter into World War II. We were in the beginning of that fix. We had introduced things into our society. Some years before that, we allowed the Federal Reserve to come into play. We entered World War I. And then what we did to try to remedy some of that was we started giving away free credit, and we started to open up the stock market to more people to invest than ever before in the history of our world. And as a result of that, people did not completely understand the responsibility of credit. And we went down a road of spend, and nothing to back it. And the country fell into a serious depression.
That sounds like you're talking about right now.
Exactly. It's a repeat. What we have now, though, that really adds to the issue of revolution is that, number one, Skiat was at is at 0 degrees Aries. It is at the Aries point. And Skiat is a fixed star, for those who don't understand what I'm talking about. When you look up in the sky and you see constellations and you say, oh, that's the Big Dipper, well, you're looking at stars in other solar systems. And in astrology, we call those fixed stars. We call them fixed because they only move at a rate of about 1 degree every 72 years. And as a result of that, they hold those constellations hold together in the sky. Where you can watch, the planets in our solar system, you can watch Jupiter move through those different constellations. The fixed stars hold together. So when we're looking at Skiat, it moves 1 degree every 72 years. So if you go in and multiply that by the 360 degrees, you're going to see that we've got about 26,000 years the last time that Skiat was at the Aries point.
And what is the attribute associated to Skiat?
Well, Skiat it's a lot of things, and as astrologers we continue to discover what it is. But at one level it's called the Great Star of Drowning. And, of course, you saw that activity.
Interesting.
Anytime we've seen a planet station, a major event does take place when a planet stations on Skiat. And that's, of course, what we saw as Uranus entered Aries and activated Skiat. We saw this enormous drowning. When it stationed this time a few days ago, I don't know what was going on in the world, but I'm sure it activated more revolution. I did note that, was it in Egypt? I think it was in Iran. Women were actually becoming more active, and there was I think it was in Iran, or maybe no, it was in Egypt, as a matter of fact, where we had the whole issue of the blue bra woman. I don't know how many of your audience knows anything about that. The women in Egypt, right there in Cairo, they were demonstrating. And here we've just had a revolution where supposedly we've got more enlightened beings taking over. The women were beaten, stripped. Just terrible, terrible things happened to the Egyptian women who were in this demonstration. And that was right there at that point, the Aries point, again, where Uranus was stationing. So when we look at tsunami, the word tsunami, it doesn't have to be water. Water is also an element of emotions, and the women represent water. So there were, since 1913, there had never been that many women protesting in Egypt. And so you had this outpouring of women, all this emotion in the streets of Egypt. That's a revolution. That was a tsunami of women. As an astrologer, you learn to look at things from a much more broad viewpoint than most people look at things, because the pictures that are given astrologically, you can't pin them down necessarily. You have to look at all the broadest pictures so that then you can find it. It's there on the planet. It always is there on the planet. At any rate, where we are moving to is a spot where Jupiter right now is in Taurus, and Taurus is an earth sign, while Uranus is in Aries, which is a fire sign. So they don't really match up. They're not doing anything to each other. When you think of fire on the earth, it scorches it. When you think of earth on fire, it puts it out. What's happening is this year we're going to have Jupiter move into Gemini. And as it moves into Gemini, I want you to think about Jupiter. Jupiter is the biggest planet in our solar system. And whenever Jupiter is in play, when it is active, it brings something into expansion. Whatever is going on, it expands it. It makes it bigger. It makes it more obvious. And a lot of the time, of course, it brings tremendous blessings to the individuals because it's also the planet of spirituality, and it is a planet of great benefit. We think of it as a benefic. However, when you put it with Uranus, where it is basically in Gemini, it's in an air sign, and Uranus is in a fire sign, then think of Jupiter as like a bellows on the fire. It's going to fan that fire and make it bigger and bigger and bigger. So every time there comes contact with Uranus, an aspect, whatever is going on this planet in terms of revolution is going to pick up speed like a bonfire that you simply cannot miss. So when I talked about revolution last year, I talked about the beginnings of revolution. When I talk about revolution this year, I am talking about revolution that simply cannot be missed. And it will be all over the planet, not just in one area, because we're talking about planetary influences that are for the entire planet Earth, not just for the United States of America, where there is definitely a revolution taking place. But
so when you say revolution, and you might be meaning a couple of different things, because are we talking about like a political social revolution? Are we talking about war? I mean, and talking about possibilities of war is something I do want to talk about more specifically, but just, can we just kind of talk about that in a general sense? What does this revolution infer?
Well, absolutely. Revolution is war. The question is that I think you're asking is, are we talking bloodshed?
Yes.
Bloodshed is always involved in revolution, but we hope that it will be kept to a minimum. But yes, revolution is an internal act, usually within a nation, not an external act to other nations. That's the difference between World War I or World War II and the revolutions that are taking place here. They may involve another country if indeed another country is acting in control of a nation. For example, in the time where Gandhi walked India, we had a revolution, and he tried to make it as peaceful a revolution as there could be. Of course, there was still bloodshed, because there has never been a revolution without bloodshed that I'm aware of. I'd love to hear about it if there has been, but I've never seen it. Someone always becomes a martyr, and in their martyrdom, it flames the revolution. That's what just took place in Egypt, where one woman was literally stripped down to her blue bra, and the whole world went crazy because it was the greatest insult or disgrace for an Egyptian woman to have such an experience. We're in America, my God, we have singers who sing on stages in their bras. It's a completely different world, a different culture.
Well, yeah, let's not even talk about Mardi Gras. What's that?
At any rate, so when I look at revolution, I am looking in this year, I'm looking at a number of things, and one of them will be war in terms of internal wars, not necessarily external wars. However, when we look at the Middle East, there are issues here that can involve revolution that could turn into conflict that is between nations. There has been a fight going on there between nations for land that one country says, I own this, and another country says, no, I own this. And there seems to be no way to resolve this problem because neither will say, okay, let's come to a solution. I will take this part of it, you take that part of it, and then we will do our best to rehome the people who need to move. But they have refused to come into that state of compromise. So when we look at revolution in the Middle East, revolution can certainly involve a conflict of nations rather than just an internal conflict.
But it seems like there is a lot of internal revolution happening in the Middle East as well. And I'm going to say this very simply without getting into the whole conspiracy thing, but we had what was going on in Egypt, and then we had Libya, right on its tail, where they basically ousted the government, whether it was helped or not, which you might have a little insight to. We don't necessarily know for sure, but, they both happen. It's like the people are crying out to have their voices heard.
Absolutely, and that's really what this worldwide revolution is about. It actually, when you understand that astrologically when we look, we also have to take into account the consciousness of man. When we look back in the Middle Ages, man did not understand his worthiness at all. There was serfdom, and culture said that if you are below a certain caste level, then you have no rights. So their fight for rights was minimized. When we look at the French Revolution, which, by the way, our ingress charts are paralleling, the charts for the United States of America are paralleling the event ingress charts for the time when we had the French Revolution. If we look at that, we can look at a period of time where young people, all the people were actually fighting for the right to have food. They simply did not even have food. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about homes. It was about food. And those people who were of the upper classes did not even have any ability to comprehend that someone would not have food. This has changed. The consciousness of man has changed. So as we look now at these parallel ingress charts for revolution in this country, we do have people who are without food. We do have people who are without homes, but we have a different caste in this country. We have people who have been of the lower classes who have become very wealthy and are in the wealthy classes now, and they still have the mentality and heart of the lower classes. So they have an understanding of the need for people to have food, shelter, clothing. As a result of that, there are helping hands, monies being put out, charity organizations available, all types of safeholds that were never there during the time of the French Revolution, where when the people no longer had food, they charged the Bastille, they took the king hostage, and then they started beheading the nobles. Bloodshed was everywhere. If we take that as a parallel here in the United States of America, I would say that the American people would go and they would start taking all the congressmen and senators hostage, because if the people in this country had any understanding of what has been going on in this so-called battle between the president and the House, they would understand that that battle is the battle for their own rights, their own freedoms, their own protection, and their own economic life. But most people don't understand it.
I think they're starting to learn.
Yeah, well, they are.
So I don't know if there is anything in there about increased awareness of people, in response to what is playing out around them.
Well, it is happening, and that awakening, of course, starts to become where everyone can see it when Jupiter gets into Gemini. Gemini is communication. Jupiter is worldwide communication, intergalactic communication, communication of spirit and metaphysics. It's communication and awareness that if we were talking about the 101 monkey theory, that after you reach a certain point of consciousness, it will overflow so everyone can hear it, see it, and know it. Then we're talking Jupiter in Gemini in conjunction with Uranus in Aries. It is awareness that expands through communication. That may be social networking, that may be the internet, maybe just simply awareness that expands and overflows, because there is so much interacting resonance. When we talk about planetary influences, we're talking about resonance. We're talking about an activity that you can't see with the human eye, but that is taking place where two objects in space, two sentient beings that we don't look at as life forms like us, but who have incredible power and communication abilities, we can see them interacting. And their interaction takes and activates geometric patterns within the human life form. That's resonance at an astrological level. And that is it's taking place now with Uranus's activity, but it's going to activate in such a fanned motion, in such a bonfire way, once Jupiter goes into Gemini.
And when is that supposed to take place?
It's coming up. Jupiter actually will go into Gemini in June.
Well, that'll feel like 2 days from now.
It's coming up. We've got, when we look at our charts and what's happening, there are some beautiful things and there's some difficult things. There are a number of different types of activities.
And let me just make a comment about what you were just talking about before you kind of move along here. You know, one of the things that concerns me is the level of control the media has placed on material that gets released. And, you know, there's stories that you see on Facebook that, you know, or in some other medias that you never see on TV, ever.
Absolutely. And you never will.
And even, you know, some of the social networking, I've heard of people putting up videos on YouTube and having them taken down and weird stuff happening. Do you see anything about that whole level of secrecy and of not wanting to let the information out?
Well, see, I see that as starting to collapse. Jupiter and Uranus together actually rule all the forms of media. Neptune has an influence in terms of media as well. Neptune is the spin doctor. Neptune is going into its own rulership in Pisces. So you can ask the question, does that mean that there'll be a greater spin? Or does that mean that its combination in Pisces is going to give more power to the individuals to see from a more spiritual point of view? Pisces is an interesting sign. Pisces is the closet. The ancients called it the closet of the zodiac. It is the state of karma and all things that we have hidden from ourselves. So when we put a Neptune in Pisces, we have the opportunity to empower ourselves to finally start to understand what we have been hiding from ourselves. Now, Neptune in Pisces by itself can't do that, but Neptune in Pisces sets the stage, and then activity from inner planets or other outer planets activating that Neptune does do that.
So kind of help lift the veil that we've kind of had shrouded around us.
Absolutely, and that's a lot of what this year is about. Uranus and Jupiter says, I will make things seen. And by putting them in Gemini, it makes things not only seen, everyone is talking about it. And when enough people are talking about something, the media is actually forced to say something. It's not the individuals in the media when we look at them and say, oh, well, this commentator and that commentator, why aren't they talking about what's really going on? They're not talking about it because they would lose their jobs if they did talk about it, because the people who pay them and control them through pay will not allow them to. The editorial content is controlled, and it is controlled in almost every single newspaper, radio, television that is mainstream around the world. When we look at China, and I have these charts in front of me for China, and I've been talking about revolution in China for over a year now, you don't hear anything about it, do you? No one, even on the Internet, talks about the revolutions that are going on in China. They can't talk about it because the Chinese will not let it out. that is going to come into a huge eruption this year. And
okay, well, let's talk about China. I mean, there is so much going on the planet right now. I mean, there's China. I mean, there's a whole economic thing tied to China, and they hold the notes for everybody on the planet pretty much. But then there's, this thought of us invading Iran or Syria, and now the the Korean dictator guy is dead. The North Korea, I would say his name, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. He's dead, so that adds just a whole other piece of stress, or potential political nightmare that gets thrown onto the table. And so, I mean, I don't know if you have their charts there, but maybe we can kind of work our way around the world and talk about what's going on in some of these, politically hot countries, and maybe what if we're going to have any kind of interface with them and what you see in that area.
Absolutely. I actually have run the charts for the European Union, for China, for North Korea, Israel, as well as our nation, the United States, and I also ran the chart for the Federal Reserve. So I have in front of me tons of information. It's just a matter of saying, okay, let's take a look. When we look at the China ingress chart, and I go by ingress charts so that the people who are listening, it's the most ancient method of prediction for nations, or what we call mundane astrology, and what it uses is the points of power of creation. At the solstices and the equinoxes, we have the greatest points of energy coming into the planet and into this galaxy. So we use that point of time when the sun hits the exact 0 degrees of Capricorn in this case, which is the winter solstice, and Aries, of course, in Cancer and Libra. At that point, we set it up for the location of the rulership of that nation, and that is what I look at. So when I say I'm looking at the Capricorn ingress for China, I am looking at the December 22nd, 2011 at 1:30 p.m., Beijing, China. And when I look at that, I see Jupiter on the ascendant, which indicates that the people are gathering and expanding, and they are also, it's in Taurus, they are wanting more of the comforts and I want to say, indulgent experiences of the rest of the world. It is in complete opposition to Saturn on the other end in the 6th house, which is the house, Saturn rules the government, and in Libra it's basically a statement of all things should be equal, all things should be fair and equal. So at any rate, we can see a huge struggle going on between the people and the government in the nation of China. When we take it and look a little further, we see that the people are going to get more help from I want to say commentators in other countries. I'm going to say people in other countries, perhaps through networking. There is some kind of support coming in through other nations and through the Internet. Even though the people maybe are not allowed to see and read everything, they are getting some kind of input that perhaps was not available before. So there is something bolstering the people of China. The fact that these things are on the angles, this is, of course, one of the most important areas in the chart when we look at ingress charts, because it tells us key events that are taking place. This is like the front focus of what's going on in that nation during this period in time, which is from now until around March the 20th. We also have a T-square going on in this country, in the country of China, and it's a statement of past experiences regarding money, regarding the ways that they develop their military, the issues of service and the way they've invested in the world. So they are having some major struggles with their own investments. Does this surprise us? Because we are one of their investments, and I'm sure when they look at the trillions of dollars that they have in U.S. bonds, they are wondering how they're ever going to get that money. And what are those bonds really worth today? The U.S. dollar is dropping like a stone. And it should, because we have nothing to back it, and our gross national product is descending, and the way that our Congress, and when I say Congress, I'm talking about the entire Congress, the Senate and the House, is handling things. They are concerned about the top 1% of the people in this nation, and of course 80%, I believe it's 80% of the people who are in the House, in that whole Congress. 80% of them are in the top 10%, with 70% of them being in the top 1%. So what relationship do they really have to the people that are their constituents? They have very limited. Their real relationship are to their controllers, the people who foot the bills to make sure that they get reelected. So we have this challenge taking place where we are destroying the middle class in this country. We are creating more homeless people. We are not doing anything effective through our representation to provide a change that will help grow a middle class or help provide more work. Instead, we are just continuing to fight between the president and this Congress, and there is no resolution coming forward. So China, as it looks at where its investments are, they don't see the ability to go to war. They're challenged with the thoughts of war. They're challenged with their investments, and they're basically challenged with what is their future and how do they globally go forward. Their shared resources is what they are looking at and what they are most challenged with. And when we look at the Mars energy coming in through that fifth house, Mars energy is red energy. It certainly fits war, but it's in the sign of Virgo, which says they are not at this point looking at war, at least not internationally. Instead, they are looking at the details to try to figure out or engineer a direction that they can take to secure their investments. So that's the chart they're working with right now. And, of course, there are a lot of other statements in this chart, but those are key statements as we look at it.
But from that perspective, they would really have a lot to lose. I mean, if you go to war, I would say that any money that you were owed, you're not going to get back.
Yeah, it pretty much gets wiped out. So they're not looking to go to war. They're looking to engineer a new direction in the way that this investment can work. So that's what they're doing right now, working overtime. While their people are saying we want more of the international way, the American way, the free choice way, the way that we can have more comforts and luxuries. We want to have bigger cars and bigger houses, and we're looking for bigger things. When we put Jupiter on the ascendant, it's all about let's get bigger. And we put it in Taurus. We want gold. We don't want iron. We want something that is beautiful and crafted and comfortable and luxurious. So this is a struggle because the opposition to Saturn in Libra says no, and this really represents this government as it stands. This government is a government that said everybody should be equal, and of course everybody in China is not equal. But if you're one of the unchosen ones, you are in a position of a kind of equality. Nobody has anything. So you're kind of equal. And but there are people at the top, and the people in China are fully aware that there are those who are privileged, and the rest of them are simply not. So
but it sounds like, from what you're saying, at this point in time, China is not a threat to us. So that's a good thing.
No, I really don't think that anyone is a threat to us, because the way that the world stands in this time frame, it's about us choosing to allow our government to become a threat to anyone else. The issue of war right now is an issue of those who are behind the scenes in control, who want to maintain control, and war gives them the opportunity to maintain control. War requires funding, war requires money, and those who are in control are bankers. The old saying of follow the money and you will know the truth of the story is very, very accurate. So when we look at what's going on, it is those beings, those people who are in what I call a cabal. It's a group that is basically underground. Those are the beings who are looking to create war. But the people of the world are actually in a revolutionary mode, which is not as easy to control because the people are looking for things in their own nations that they don't have, and they are willing to fight for those things now. And as we progress into June, they will become more and more willing to stand up and fight.
And see, there's a lot of people that don't believe the American people are willing to get up off the sofa and put their remote control down and do anything.
Well, we are. I recently read a blog that I thought was the most absolutely piercing view of America. It was written by a woman from Chile, and she has hated America since she was a child because it was America who funded the revolutionary groups who went in and terrorized the people of Chile and killed a lot of her friends and a lot of her family. And so we don't have a great standing down there. But she, through spirit, was forced to kind of come to this country. And as a result, she discovered the American people are wonderful people, and they don't have any awareness of what has been done through their government. She, in her blog, clearly said, these are the people we must help in the world. They may look like they have everything, but they are the most oppressed people on the planet because spiritually they have the greatest ability to advance the world. They are drugged. They are drugged through media. They are drugged through drugs. They are drugged through alcohol. They are drugged through food. Their foods are also drugs. Everything in this country drugs these people and holds them from having the awareness that they naturally have an inclination for. She said, if we are to do anything to create revolution around the world, we must free the American people first. I thought that was the most absolutely revealing blog that I've ever read.
I mean, that's huge.
Yes, because we don't know how to look at ourselves. It takes someone from outside to see very, very clearly what's wrong and who we are. When you meet people here, we are wonderful people. We have generous hearts. We are a cancer nation. Cancer is the country, is the sign of protecting and nurturing the family and the world. And that is the kind of people the American people are. We don't want to see anyone starve. We're the ones who will dig in our pockets first, before anyone else in the world, and donate to help those children starving in Africa. But unfortunately, we as Americans are also incredibly naive and don't realize it is our government that helped those people starve in Africa.
But even the whole concept of us being, as you said, a drugged nation, I was talking to this guy who is living, I mean, this is just like last week. He is from Russia. I mean, he's American, but he's doing some kind of job assignment in Russia. And I was joking around with him, and I said, well, I guess they don't really, or do you have fast food there? I said, not like McDonald's, which would be one thing. I go, but, is there like Russian fast food? And he goes, no. Mm-hmm. And there's so many people that just, we're so used to fast food here and Starbucks and all of these things that we have access to that, are not really that good for us. And in other countries, the impression that I got was that, if you want a fast food item, they're all from American companies because they've never really developed that piece of the market.
No, and you're absolutely correct. Because other countries are still in states where they have much more awareness. They are more clear thinkers. But we are a drug nation, and we have taken drugs to the nth degree now. We've put them on television where our children are now being completely programmed that the way you solve a problem is to get a drug. We have allowed children whose formative brains are absorbing this information and is becoming a part of their mental viewpoint. And they don't have a choice. They're not adults with a formed brain who can say, well, I don't agree with that advertisement. They have a brain that is forming, and it absorbs that information, and it becomes part of who they are. This is the most hideous and insidious thing that you could possibly do to this nation. And when you look at the children, you think these people are not aware who are working this control? These are the children that are of the new rays. These are the children who have the ability to bring forward states of consciousness because they have not been reincarnating for millennia. So how do you hold these children back and hold them down? You drug them. You also declare that their issues are issues of that need to be controlled and need to be drugged, that they are illness issues, instead of realizing what they really are. I don't know if you had the opportunity to see a movie that came out recently that was, in my opinion, one of the great Enlightenment movies of our time. It was called Temple Grandin, about an autistic woman who overcame, in many ways, her autism. That movie was so revealing about how we, as a nation, have allowed a medical entity to tell us that our children are sick and damaged and that they need drugs and that they will never be more than vegetables. The truth of the matter is that autism is not a disease at all, that these souls that are coming into these bodies are in bodies that are ill-equipped for the expansive nature of who they are. They have the ability to recollect and see everything that is taking place, where we, in our antique vehicles, have learned to only take in less than 1% of what is really being seen.
Well, let me ask this question, because the cabal that you were talking about earlier, I was led to believe, and maybe there's multiple that we're talking about here, that it was an international group. And if it's an international group, then why would they just pick out the Americans, as opposed to creating that kind of environment worldwide?
Well, the Americans are positioned for it. The Americans are the multinational. We are the rainbow people, as they call them in the Hopi. So the focus has been on destroying America because the greatest power on the planet has been this nation. This is the nation where, through its diversification and its states of freedom, has created genius. The genius is here. That doesn't mean there aren't geniuses in other areas of the world, but this is where they needed to take supreme control. Do not think they are not international. They are in every nation on the planet. And they do take control where they can, but the people are freer in other nations. They push them away. They actually take action. And the nations are also, aside from China and Russia, and most of the nations are a lot smaller. This is why they created the European Union, a collective, because it's a much easier way. If you can get it into one form, then you can control it. But they are very old nations, and they are very much opposed to being one nation with one government.
And see, part of it I totally see, but then there's a part of me that goes, I don't really understand the mentality. It's like, okay, so you dumb down all these people, so now they're not coming up with any kind of advances or anything like that. So what's the point? And actually, I'm going to give a different example. There's the talk the Georgia Stonehenge, get the population down to 500,000 people or
Right.
whatever that number is. And I'm like, okay, but if you get the population down to that small of a number, then who's going to take your clothes to the dry cleaner? And who's going to dry clean your clothes or wash your car? I don't really see you out there chopping wood, you cabal guy.
I
don't understand. It's like, they've created this society so that they could have these luxuries, but if you get rid of all the people, then who's going to wait on you?
Well, they have a huge amount of people underground that I expect they will also release.
Oh, wait. Back up, huh?
Yeah, well, we have been building underground cities for a long, long time, and I don't know how many there are at this point. The last time I spoke with a man who is now dead, who was one of the technicians that helped build a lot of those cities. He was dying at the time, and he said at that time there were over 2,100 of them that he had been part and parcel building. But he revealed that information because he was dying, and he knew they were going to kill him if he didn't die anyway. But he already had cancer, and he knew he was dying. At any rate, we have probably easily over 3,000 of them at this point. I have no idea what the number is. It may be 5,000. Who knows? But when I talk about cities underground, I'm talking about enormous spaces and not just, a little hole in the wall. We're talking about enormous spaces that are way underground. We're talking miles. And we're talking spaces that are bigger than, for example, the city of New York. So there's so much that has been going on this planet that most people are completely unaware of. And really, most people would rather deny it and be in denial about it, because why do you even want to know it? It's not something that I want to know. It's just something that I do know. And I'd rather not know. I agree with the rest of the people on the planet. Let's forget about it. Let's hide it. But it's coming to a point where hiding it is not going to be probably acceptable. It's changing.
But it just seems like, there's this stack of cards, house of cards that's been created with lie upon lie upon lie upon cover-up. And, if this exposure happens, then I just feel like it's going to just pull out the